The Super Mario series has been around for almost 40 years at this point, but that means we've gotten a lot of creative and new power-ups over the years. We're going to rank every single one in this video. There's over 40 to rank, so let's get into it. First up, we have the famous Super Mushroom. This grows Mario twice his height and makes him able to break blocks. It's a very simple power-up, but it's really nice, so this one is going to get B tier. Next up, we have the Fire Flower. The Fire Flower, it does everything that Super Mario can do, but except now he can shoot fireballs to defeat enemies. It's basic, but it really helps you whenever you're trying to get through a horde of enemies, so this one is going to get A tier. Next up, we have the Superstar. The Superstar allows Mario to run extremely fast and become invincible for about 20 seconds. It's really handy whenever you're trying to beat a tough level, and it gets you a lot of progress, so I'm going to put this one in A tier. The Raccoon Leaf allows Mario to fly if he gets a running start. It also allows him to glide down anywhere, and it also allows him to whack opponents with it. It's a very handy power-up, and I'm going to put this one in A tier. Now we have the Frog Suit. The Frog Suit allows Mario to swim fast underwater, which sounds extremely useful, but the problem is that when you're on land, it actually makes Mario worse. He just keeps hopping around, and besides his very situational use, it's not that good, so this is going to get C tier. Now we have the Hammer Suit. The Hammer Suit allows Mario to throw hammers at enemies. However, it's only in a perfect arch and it's very hard to kill enemies with. Also, this power-up is extremely hard to come by, so sadly I'm going to put this in C tier along with the Frog Suit. Now moving on to Super Mario World, we have the Feather Cape. The Feather Cape allows you to get a running start, and you can permanently fly if you manage to time your buttons right. It's also very handy because like the Tanuki Suit, you can glide down, and you can also whack opponents with it, so this is going to get A tier along with it. Now we have the P-Balloon. The P-Balloon actively makes Mario worse in my opinion. It turns Mario into a balloon for a couple of seconds, and you can glide around. However, Mario is extremely slow, vulnerable, and I still have nightmares from Tubular, so I'm going to give this one a D tier. Now we have the Super Ball Flower. The Super Ball Flower allows Mario to throw balls in a 90-degree angle. It is pretty useful, but it's basically a rip-off Fire Flower. Now, my footage got corrupted with me putting the Super Ball Flower in C tier, but that's where it would go. Now we have the Super Carrot from Super Mario Land 2. This one is extremely helpful. It's basically the easy mode of the game. It allows you to hover forever if you're just a good aim masher. So for that, it's very useful, so this will get an S tier. Moving on to Super Mario 64, I'm going to start off with the Metal Cap. The Metal Cap turns Mario invincible and metal for a couple of seconds. You can walk underwater and immediately defeat enemies. It's a pretty good power-up, but not the best. I'll give it B tier. Now we have the Vanish Cap. The Vanish Cap turns Mario invincible, and he can go through steel grids and avoid certain enemies. But this is only used for a couple of stars, and I don't really like this power-up. It's kind of useless, so I'm going to give this C tier. We have the Wing Cap. The Wing Cap allows you to fly if you do a triple jump. This can be useful for getting stars and avoiding obstacles. It's not the best power-up in the world, but it's great, so I'll give it an A tier. In Super Mario 64 DS, the Power Flower was introduced. It just gives off the same abilities as in Super Mario 64 to the different characters, but Yoshi has his own ability. He can spit fire at enemies for a short period of time. It is pretty useful, but not the best, so I'll give it a B tier. Next up, we have the Mega Mushroom. The Mega Mushroom turns Mario into a giant for about 10 seconds. It can be used to destroy tons of brick blocks in your path and obtain 1-ups. This is a really good power-up, so this is going to get A tier. Next up is the Mini Mushroom. The Mini Mushroom transforms you into a smaller version of yourself and allows you to float and hover for a little bit in the air. It feels a lot kind of like Luigi's physics in New Super Luigi U, but turned into a power-up. However, you are one-shot, and it is a little hard to use, so this one will get a B tier. Now we have the Blue Shell. The Blue Shell turns Mario into a shell that constantly moves around. It's very fast and it's very fun to use. It kills all enemies in its path, and this one is extremely underrated. I don't know why Nintendo never brought it back. This one is gonna get an easy S tier. Now we have the Bee Mushroom. The Bee Mushroom lets Mario fly for a short period of time, and while that does sound basic, it's extremely handy whenever you're playing Mario Galaxy, so this gets an A tier. Now we have the Boo Mushroom. The Boo Mushroom turns Mario into a Boo. He can roam around freely in Ghost House levels, and he can pass through certain walls to get certain stars. It's pretty occasional though, but pretty helpful in those Ghost House levels, so I'll give this a B tier. Now we have the spring mushroom. The spring mushroom, just like the pea balloon, I think makes Mario actively worse. It's used for a couple of challenges in Galaxy, but it just limits Mario's moveset to only hopping. It's really bad in my opinion, and I think it's gonna go in D tier. Next up is the ice flower. In Super Mario Galaxy, you can shoot ice balls and you can go on water and run across it. In the 2D games, you can take them out on enemies to freeze them and throw them around to get a couple 1-ups. It is pretty good in both games, so I'm gonna give it A tier. Moving on, we have the propeller mushroom. The propeller mushroom boosts Mario into the air and he floats back down. It's really helpful when you're playing a 2D game like New Super Mario Bros., so I'm gonna put this one in A tier. Now we have the penguin suit, and this turns Mario into a penguin. It makes it to where he can slide really fast, shoot ice balls like the ice flower, and you can swim really fast underwater. This is useful in every situation, and I never knew why people don't talk about this power-up more. It's so useful. Easiest S tier ever. The cloud flower allows Mario to generate cloud platforms and become lighter when he falls. It's a pretty useful power-up in Galaxies 2, so I'm gonna give this A tier. Speaking of Galaxy 2, we now have the rock mushroom. The rock mushroom allows Mario to turn into a massive boulder and roll into things. This can be helpful when getting certain stars. It's not the best, but it's definitely a good power-up. I'll give it A tier. Now we have the boomerang flower from Super Mario 3D Land. The boomerang flower allows Mario to become a boomerang bro and throw boomerangs. It can kill multiple enemies at once, which is a plus, but the punishment for missing is so high because it takes so long to come back. It's still a great power-up though, so I'll give it B tier. Now we have the gold flower. The gold flower turns Mario completely golden, and he can shoot gold balls which turn every brick into coins. It's a very useful way to get coins and 1-ups, and it's just super fun to play around with, so I'm gonna give this one A tier. Now we have the Super Acorn. The Super Acorn turns Mario into a flying squirrel, and you can glide, get a short boost in midair, and you can do a really high spin jump. All of these make this power-up extremely useful, and it's extremely helpful when you do get it in the game. So I'm gonna give this one S tier. Now to finish off the new Super Mario Bros. Series, we have the Super Crown. The Super Crown is exclusive to Toadette, and it does a variety of things. You can do a really high spin jump, you can glide, and you can get a short boost after doing a jump. It's extremely helpful, and while it is exclusive to Toadette, it's basically the easy mode of the game. So obviously this will get S tier. Now we have the Super Bell from Super Mario 3D World. This turns Mario into a cat that can dive, climb up walls, and pounce at enemies. It's very useful, so I'm gonna put this in A tier. Now we have the Double Cherry. The Double Cherry duplicates Mario and allows you to press certain switches and makes it easier to kill enemies if you have other power-ups like the Fire Flower. It's quite useful, but it's not the best thing in the world, but it's still great, so I'll put it in B. Next up, we have the Cannon Box. The Cannon Box allows you to shoot cannons out of your head. It allows you to shoot projectiles that are needed to progress some levels, and it allows you to defeat enemies. It is pretty useful, but it's not seen that much, so I'll give it B tier. Now we have the Light Box. The Light Box allows you to shine light in Ghost House levels, and it is pretty useful in those levels, but I don't see the point on why they couldn't have just put light in the levels instead of making you wear this. It is pretty annoying to wear, so I'll put it in C tier. Now we have the Goomba Mask. All this does is just make you look like a Goomba and enemies can't see you. Yeah, I don't know why people would call this useful. This is absolutely useless. This is going to get D tier. Now we have the Propeller Box. This is basically as if you took the Propeller Mushroom and made it temporary and wearable. It is slightly better though, as it does have 3 uses, but it also is temporary, so it makes it a little worse. But I'll still put it in A because of that one glitch you can do where you can go all across the level. So yes, this is going in A tier. Now we have the Bullet Bill Mask in Mario Maker. The thing is with this power-up is that it makes you a bullet bill and it makes you able to bullet towards anything. It is pretty handy, not the best thing in the world, but I like it. I'll put it in B tier. Now we have the Mystery Mushroom, which will turn you into a random character from a random franchise. This is absolutely incredible. I really love this power-up. There's so many abilities you can get, and it really makes for a lot of creative levels. Easy S tier. Now we have the Weird Mushroom. You could say that this is better than the Super Mushroom because it makes Mario like Luigi and it does everything it does, but I just feel like because it's a joke, and it really is a joke, it just doesn't feel that good of a power-up. I'm gonna put this in C tier, but you can disagree with me. Now we have the Builder Hammer, and this turns Mario into Builder Mario. What this does is that he can move crates around, destroy things, and it's pretty useful all around. I'm going to give this B tier because while it is useful, it's not used in a lot of levels and it just feels a little unnecessary. Next up is the Giga Bell. And do I need to explain why this is S tier? Starting with Mario Wonder, I'm going to start with the Drill Mushroom. The Drill Mushroom allows Mario to burrow underground and defeat enemies that are on top of him. It is a pretty useful power-up, but not the best. It's great. I'll give it B tier. The Elephant Fruit turns Mario into an elephant that can store water in his trunk, you can break blocks using your trunk, and you're just a much bigger size. It's quite helpful when you're playing a Mario Wonder, so I'll give it A tier. And finally, we have the Bubble Flower. The thing with the Bubble Flower is that it allows you to shoot out bubbles and kill enemies. You can also jump on top of these bubbles, and it's super useful. This might just be personal bias, but I want to put this in S tier, and not to mention there's a trick where you can do where you can just fly infinite with it. So yes, I'm going to put this in S tier. And that is our final tier list. I was really happy making this, but it took me a very, very long time, so the least you could do was subscribe, but don't worry, it's completely optional. Alright, I'll see you in the next one.